My name is Bruce Nissen, Director of Research at the Center for Labor Research and Studies at Florida International University. I've been involved with the union for the last, since I came to FIU, which was 19 years ago. Well, I have taught in higher education for over 35 years, and I have worked in non-union situations and in union situations. FIU was a unionized situation. There is a very clear difference. And the main difference is, by any stretch of the imagination, the main difference is that faculty have more say, more control, more power. They are empowered in a way when they have their own collective voice. And that's all a union really is this collective voice backed up by the law saying that the administration, the institution, must bargain as equals with the faculty over what the terms and conditions of employment would be. In a non-union situation, that is not the circumstance, and you're an at-will employee except for whatever policies the university may choose to develop. The only influence faculty have in these non-union circumstances is ability to advise or to suggest. There's no power behind it. It's a big difference. It's a huge difference. As a result of that, I find that in a union situation, the willingness to speak up, the fear of speaking up if you have a different opinion than what the administration is doing at the moment, drops drastically compared to non-union circumstances. The governance of the institution is much, much, much better because people are speaking up. The place works much, much better simply because there's a strong and more powerful voice for faculty. To the extent faculty have a stronger collective voice and a real voice and have a stronger say over the way the institution runs, in my experience, the institution runs much better, which means not only for faculty, our terms and conditions of employment are better, but it also means that the education and the quality of the education that the students are getting is better when the faculty have a stronger voice. Well, what I find is that in the faculty senate, you'll always simply have advisory power. They can blow you off and ignore you. They can pay no attention to what you have to say. You can give suggestions, but you've got nothing more than that. With the union, they have to sit down and bargain across the table by law with you as equals on what terms and conditions of employment will be. The other thing I find is that in a union situation where you've got a reasonably strong union, the same individuals from the union can be, in fact, the vast majority of the people in the faculty senate and the rest, so that the faculty have their anchor, which is their union in terms of having legal power and all the rest, and then they can have a second. It's like two arms that you have. It's your first arm is your union. Your second arm is your faculty senate, where through the faculty senate you can deal with other conditions other than simply terms and conditions of employment. And you can have a much stronger and more powerful faculty voice over those curricular matters, programmatic matters, the overall direction that the institution's going to take and all the rest. You'd be much, much stronger if you have a faculty union there that is also operating through the faculty senate. And the two can work hand in hand and arm in arm with each other. And that's the way it works, for example, at FIU, and that's the way I think it works quite well. It's very easy for someone to come along and say, well, your interests are different because you're on a tenure track than somebody who's non-tenure track, or you non-tenure track people, you don't have the same interests. They're the elitists, the tenure track, and all the rest. If you can get both of those into the same collective voice, namely into your union and the rest, you can mediate and work those kinds of issues out within your organization, within the union, basically. I know at FIU, when I first came there in 1997, the union was primarily composed of those who were tenure track, and the rest. And we made a concerted, realizing that was the case, we made a concerted effort to work with and to incorporate and to bring into the union non-tenure track lecturers, instructors, people who were not on tenure track and were not going to be. I myself was, since we didn't grant degrees, could not be a tenure track faculty. So the lecturers, instructors, and the non-tenure track people were brought in. We negotiated really very strongly for them, won them some wonderful things, including steps similar to steps of going from assistant professor to associate professor to full professor. Instructor 1, instructor 2, instructor 3, with some hefty salary increases if you could put together a portfolio and prove that you had been a long-term and very productive employee as an instructor or as a lecturer or whatever else. Won some really, and developed much, much greater strength out of and have very, very strong participation out of all types of faculty. And it hasn't been a strong divisive issue because we haven't allowed it to be. We have understood that our interests as faculty stand together as faculty. And you're not going to tell me that I've got to be your enemy simply because you're non-tenure track and I'm tenure track, or vice versa. That doesn't work, and to the extent you fall for that, you've made a drastic mistake. And unions that know what they're doing, that are worth anything, will not fall for that and will stand to pull the interests of the faculty together. One I'm particularly proud of at FIU was the parental leave that we had won. There had been none before, and we bargained hard for it, and got 6 months of paid parental leave for any faculty member who has a child. And so, for example, if you had, and it may be the case that both the husband and the wife, or both the parents, there's basically a full year of parental leave there. One can take, for 6 months, and the other can take it for the other 6 months, and the rest. That was a big thing, especially for our younger faculty. I'm very proud of that one, to take just, for example, one example. I'm also very proud of something I mentioned earlier, which is what we did for the non-tenure track faculty and how they've got career paths now. And we give awards now to non-tenure track faculty for the things that they achieve too. And we're just really elevating the status of all of our faculty, not simply those who are on the tenure track. And it hasn't been detrimental to those on the tenure track that we do this. Far from it. It's been helpful actually to all of us. Well, I find corporatization can mean a whole lot of things, and the effects it has when it comes down upon us are multiple. But I can give a couple of examples from my own experience and from the state university system in Florida. One thing is corporate interests have certainly taken over our political system in Florida and have imposed on the universities and on the colleges terms that are extremely ignorant of higher education and how it goes on, terms that are very onerous, that make the institutions run much less effectively and less efficiently, and have been really awful for not only faculty but also for students and the quality of education that goes on. Through our union, we've got a strong faculty voice fighting against those things. Now, some of those things we have stopped, some of the worst things we've stopped, such as guns on campus, and we're all supposed to bring our own guns to fight back against a disgruntled student on campus, those types of things. We've stopped a number of really bad initiatives in the Florida legislature. Others we have not been able to stop because we have in the Florida legislature a large number of extreme ideologues of a right-wing kind of nature who are going to impose things no matter what. But we have been able to a lot of times ameliorate and blunt how far and how badly things have actually been done. So, and without that, there's very little faculty voice. One or two faculty may go up and try to lobby for faculty interests or something, but there's really no effective faculty voice. And it is, even in a relatively hostile climate such as Florida, it is a quite strong force. And we also, because we're affiliated with the kindergarten through 12 teachers union and things like that too, we have a much larger voice in general in the state legislature. So that's one way in which you can, and this idea that you have to run the university as a corporation and as a for-profit center and other consequences be damned and all the rest, which is harmful to faculty and harmful to students. You can fight that through the political process if you have a strong collective voice, namely a union. That's one way. The other way is you see when it comes down inside the university itself, you see that they start pushing for massive misallocation of resources, is I guess the way I would put it. What we discovered at Florida International University and the union, the commission to study to look into this, where are resources being allocated? And basically what we found was over a 10-year period, over a 5-year period, over a 1-year period, any period you wanted to look at, that there had been a massive reallocation of resources away from salaries of those conducting the business of the university, namely the faculty, those who are doing the work of the university, reallocating those resources to administrators. So the number of administrators have been going up by double digits every year. The salaries of administrators, particularly the highest level administrators, have been going up by double digits, sometimes 20% or more a year. That the numbers of faculty have been either staying steady or growing at best 1% a year or something of that sort, and that the salaries of our faculty were growing 1, 2, or 3% or something of that sort, so that resources are being drained away from the primary mission of the university, namely teaching, research, and servicing our students. The size of our classes was growing incredibly, the numbers also showed. The quality of education that was being given to our students And because of the misallocation, we couldn't hire enough faculty to actually provide enough classes to sometimes timely get 3 people through their programs. Students were also being shortchanged and sometimes had to go extra semesters and everything else in order to complete and get their degrees. Students were getting shortchanged, faculty were getting shortchanged. Administrators, especially high-level administrators, they were creating them a mile a minute, were making out like bandits. This was a terrible situation. It was a big buzz throughout the entire campus. It even got into the local newspapers. Administration was very ashamed, didn't even know what they'd been doing, to be honest about it. The union was the one who had to point out what was going on. We bargained on this issue and didn't immediately reverse it, but in fact we have reversed this situation. In the most recent period that I looked at, actually the numbers of faculty was growing a little faster than the number of administrators that were growing, and we've at least cut back somewhat the rapid increase in the salaries of administrators and all the overall resources that are going. So that's a form of corporatization too. It's one of the many ways in which corporatization coming down on the university exhibits itself. And had there been no union, none of this would have been reversed. We would just continue to see just runaway inflation in the numbers of and the salaries of administrators, especially high-level administrators.